Hey guys, welcome back. So CVs are an integral part in your grad school application, in your job application, in your relationship application. No, it's not? Well, true story, a guy has sent me his CV because he wanted to date me and he wanted me to see his credentials. I swear. Oh god, if you're wondering, I never responded because I think that's so crazy. But yeah, so who knows? It's CV. If you work on your CV, you may land a girl. You know, whatever. Some people are into weird stuff. But in this video, we are talking about all things CV. Alright, enjoy. Let go. Alright, so welcome back to my channel. Alright, today we are talking about CVs and why are CVs important? CVs are important because they succinctly summarize who you are, what you studied, what you've done, your achievements in one document very nicely without all the narrative that goes in your statement of purpose, right? So your CV is important, okay? All right, so what is the difference between a CV and a resume? So a resume is more of your professional accomplishments. Your CV is your professional accomplishments and your academic accomplishments. So those so when you apply for jobs, for example, your resume usually comes in handy. But when you're applying for grad school or for more of like a research oriented position, they typically ask for your CV, and that's why in today's video, okay, I'm just kidding. And that's why in today's video we are discussing CVs and why your CVs are important. This is going to be a long video. Why? Because it's broken down into various sections. Follow this video step by step and you're good. All right. There are a couple of broad things. This video is going to be divided into 3 sections. Then there are the broad things that you should look for in your CV. Then there's the CV structure, and then there's the grammatical editing part of your CV. All right. So the first category is the broad idea of your CV. There's some things to look out for. So for your grad school, if you're developing your CV for grad school, you want to highlight your academic achievement. So those are the things that you want to really highlight in your CV. Because I mean, we know you've done a ton of stuff on your job, but when I review CVs, when I review applications, I'm not really looking for what you've done on your job. I'm looking for what you've done academically, right? So that's something to keep in mind as you draft your CV, okay, for grad school. All right, make sure you use proper grammar. I don't think this even needs too much hype anymore. If you are new to my channel, I always emphasize editing your work multiple times. If you're not new, you know, I always say edit, edit, edit. You gotta edit your work. Nobody wants to see a typo in your CV, okay? So just make sure that's taken care of. In your CV, you want to include language that's going to capture the reviewer's attention. So include details and activities of the project you've been involved in, and use powerful language. Like use language that's going to capture the reviewer. So don't be vague. So instead of saying I spent 2 weeks at a job doing this, or I spent 2 weeks at an internship or 2 weeks on a project, you want to say, because that's very vague. You spend 2 weeks doing what, right? So you want to say spend 2 weeks curating ideas or developing software, or you want to be like detailed about what you did, right, on each project. So a CV can be as long. A CV is like, it can be longer than a resume. So feel free to go into detail, right, when you write your CV. You feel free to do that. Okay, so something to keep in mind is your CV should be linear. So by linear, I mean your CV should follow a pattern. Every graduate committee, even everybody on the job, they want to see that your CV, that you're getting better. They want to see growth. They want to see improvements. Your CV should demonstrate a clear path to growth, right? So it should be linear. It should be going that way. Psh, psh, So make sure that in your CV, you're demonstrating that you're growing and you're improving. So everything you've done matters for your CV. So don't be ashamed to include everything. Your internships, even participation in church. So for my CV, when I was developing my CV for grad school and stuff, I was like, what have I done for my community? And then I was like, well, I teach Sunday school at church. I teach kids at church. So I blew that up, man. I mean, it depends on it always depends on how you draft it, right? So I put, you know, in my CV, I put director of children's ministry, blah blah blah, you know, and then I put all the things because I was developing sermons for kids and things like that. So I put all that in because I was like, well, that's community service, that's, you know, so that's volunteer work. Nobody was paying me to teach kids, but that's something, if you're in church, if you're active in your church, put that in there. That's volunteer work, and that's great, you know. So everything you're doing right now matters, okay? So don't forget that when you draft your CV. So talking about your volunteer work and unpaid internships matter. They matter because they show the committee, they show the employers, they show people that they show them what you're interested in. Because if you're not getting paid for something and you're doing it, that's huge, right? That shows people that this is something you're really passionate about, and you're doing it without compensation, without monetary compensation. So that's huge. So always, that says a lot about you. That says a lot. So always include internships, volunteer work in your CV. When I look at CVs, I'm always like, cool. I'm not kidding, I always go straight to look at people's volunteer work because that says a lot about who you are, about what you're interested in. Not even who you are per se, but it says a lot about what you're interested in. Because if you can do something for free, that says a lot about you. So, you know, so put everything in there. Put everything in there. Okay. All right. So there are 10 sections of your CV. 10 sections. You must include all of these sections in your CV. Some of you may not have the experience with these sections, but if you do, make sure you include them. So the first section, I would say 11. Let's say 11. I always have an extra one. Okay, so the first section of your CV should have your name, okay? The first section of CV, your name, then your address, then your email, and your phone number, and a date. So the date is very important. The date is important because it tells the committee it tells the committee the dates of drafting the CV, because things change, right? So if I'm reviewing a CV in October and the CV, and you submitted the CV in January, I know that there's been a gap between October and between January and October. So you've probably even done more stuff. So make sure that you always date your CV. Every time you update your CV, change the date so that your CV reflects the date it was last edited before the reviewer views it. So you always want to have your name, your address, your phone number, and a date. Your email address, your name, your physical address, your email address, your phone number, and a date right on top, like centered in your CV. Okay, so the next section is education, right? After demographic details, you have education. So if you're applying for a master's degree, you put your prior educational achievement. So typically it's your bachelor's degree. If you're applying for a PhD, you put your prior educational achievements, which would be your master's and your bachelor's, right? So make sure that you have these. That would be the next section after your demographic details. And something to consider is if you're applying for a master's, under your bachelor's, after mentioning the school where you went to, you want to put the project you did for your final year, because most of us did final year projects. So put the title of the project you did under the school. And, you know, so just put that in, like, graduating project, blah, 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 blah. If you're applying for a PhD, under the you put master's thesis, blah, blah, blah. If you're applying for a postdoc, under the PhD, under your PhD, you put your dissertation title, right? So you want to make sure that you're putting all those things in there under education. And don't forget to put the dates where you went to school. All right, so the third section is your academic and professional experience. Okay, you put everywhere you've worked. Even if this is a CV you're working on for grad school, still put your professional experience as well. So yeah. All right, so that would be your third section, your academic and professional experience. And then your fourth section will be your research experience. Research goes in the fourth section because you're applying to grad school. Even if you're applying to a job, a lot of jobs want to see that you're doing research, that you can think critically. So especially if it's like your first job and you just have research experience, or you did a little bit of project here and there. add your research, I'm telling you. All right, so research experience, and then after your research experience, if you have any teaching experience, put that right under your research experience. Assuming you also have research experience. You may not even have research experience, but I'm just telling you how this goes chronologically, okay? Then your technical competencies. So if you are applying to grad school, applying for a job, you want to make sure that your technical competencies are highlighted in your CV. So make a section that talks about your technical competencies. So if you know how to use some kind of data set, if you know how to use some kind of software, especially engineering, like if you're an engineer, you're applying to grad school, you want to highlight like what you can use, right? Like, can you use MATLAB? What can you use? Like, what software technical competencies do you have? So you want to make sure that that has its own section in your CV. And if you do not have any technical competencies, at least you know how to use Word documents, you know how to use Excel, put that in there under technical competencies. Put like Microsoft Office, proficient in Microsoft Office, you know? So have that in there. And then your honors and awards. If you've gotten any honors, if you've been awarded anything, put that in there. And here's the tip. Whenever you put your honors and awards, make sure that you explain what the award means. So for example, I am a distinguished fellow in my college, right? And so my college is like faculty, like the College of Health Sciences at my university. So I think we are about 13 distinguished fellows for the college. And so when I put that in my CV, right under as an honor, I immediately explain what that means. Because if someone sees my CV and you're a distinguished fellow, what does that mean? You know? So I immediately put what it means, right? It means blah, 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 in quotation marks. And I put that under honors and awards so that people understand what my honor is and what I have been awarded, you know, and it's a huge thing. I'm so excited. I'm part of that elite group, but you have to explain it to people. What were you awarded for? What were you good at? That was, you know, so make sure that's included in your CV. Okay, your next should be your publications and presentations. Do you have any publications? It doesn't have to be scientific peer-reviewed research papers. But if you have any publications, like even if you have a blog, I love blogs. Like when students apply and they have blogs, it's the best because that also speaks to who you are, right? It doesn't mean you should go start a blog, but if you have a blog, put that in there. You know, presentations, have you presented anywhere? Have you presented your work at research at conferences? Or, you know, whatever, like put that in there. If you haven't, it's fine. I mean, that's why you're going to grad school, so don't beat yourself up. But if you've done any of this stuff, include that in there. That is a game changer if you have publications and or presentations. Okay, next section is your community service, your volunteer work, or your extracurricular activities. So that's where you put in all the work you've done in church, any work you've done for free, put that in there and explain briefly what that means, what those entailed, right? What you did there. Because the thing is, even if you mention these places, I mean, what did you do though, right? So you want to make sure that in everywhere, every time you say, oh, I volunteer here, like let's say you under your volunteer service section, let's say you say I volunteered at so church. Let's say you volunteer usher at Christ Embassy Church, right? Let's say you say that. That's vague. So you want to write what ushering entails. I'm not saying write a long sentence, a long paragraph. No, just bullet points. What did that activity entail? That gives a reviewer more insight into your volunteer work and into who you are. So include that. Okay. All right. Next section, you want to put your academic and professional memberships. So are you part of any organizations? Are you part of any groups? That's where you put that in there. It's always a nice thing to see that students are actually interested and invested in some kind of organizations or some kind of groups, because that also lends some information about you to the committee. So yeah, so put that in there and that'll be great. All right, so the last section is your references. You do not want to forget your references. If you have not watched the video I made on references, how to get references, I will link that somewhere up there. I'm not very tech savvy, I'm sure you guys have noticed, but I hope this content is helping you somehow. Okay, so add the names of your references at the end of your CV and make sure that the references know that you've added their names. Because don't just go add people's names without consulting them first, okay? Because several times we see a reference and we call the person, and there's been times where the person is like let's say you put a reference down, I'm reviewing your application, I see a number and I'm like, oh, let's chat with this person, and I call, I email, and there's no response because they don't know who I am, they don't, so, and I've called several people and you're like, I'm not, like, I don't want to give a reference, like, I'm not ready, or, like, they're not very forthcoming, because the students did not ask for permission to put their professors' names down or their bosses' names down, right? So you want to make sure that your reference is aware that they have been put down as a reference, so that if we are communicating with them, if we have to call them, if we email them, they're on the lookout for our email or our phone call. Okay? All right, so that's something to think about. All right, now the third part of this video is formatting your CV. How do you format your CV? You want to use one font throughout. Times New Roman. Is that what it's called? Yeah. That's the most acceptable font, right? You want to make sure you use that. You use the 12 text types, the 12. Times New Roman 12. You're good. Please don't start using some cursive or some crazy stuff. Times New Roman 12. That's what you need to be using. Period. Doop. Full stop. So formatting your CV is so vital. Whenever people review your CV, they don't want to see things jumping all over the place, flying. Dates, dates on the second page that should be on the first page. No. So make sure that your CV is formatted, and make sure that whenever you send your CV out, it's in a PDF file, okay? Because PDF doesn't change. So that even if I open your CV on a different computer or some kind of weird software, PDFs stay put, okay? So make sure that you convert your CV from a Word document to a PDF document so they don't jump around when you submit. When you're needing your CV to be reviewed, then yeah, send it in a Word document. All right. So if there are some achievements or some, is there something you want to highlight in your CV, like you're so proud of, like you finished the first class and you want to make sure that we see it, like, hey, I finished the first class. If you want to highlight something that you're so proud of in your CV, you can either bold, italicize, or underline. Don't do all three. Don't even do two. Pick one and do it. Please. Like, we know you did this. Like, we can see it. We're not blind. Just don't. Some of you bold, italicize, and underline. Like, for what? Why? You don't need to do that. So just pick one and do that, and let that speak for itself. Okay. I personally like to underline. I don't know. I just like underline is like clean. It doesn't change the text. It just highlights by underlining. But you don't have to do what I like. Whatever works for you. Just pick one, please. Bold, either italicize, or either underline. Just pick one. All right. So in each category, use reverse chronological order. So always start with the latest information. Always start with the latest activity you've done. So if you are applying in 2020 for something, if you're sending your CV out in 2020, you want to make sure that in each section, what you've done, what you highlight starts in 2020, 2019, 2018. So it goes in reverse chronological order. That always works because you want us to see what you've done. What you want to see the latest information first. Your information, whatever information you have, is always on the left side, and then your dates are always on the right side. Please, okay? This just makes your CV look organized and clean. You put your school here, you put the date you attended school right there. So left and right side. So when people read your CV like this, they're reading the information and they can trace it to what date this happened. They're going left to right. Date, activity, date, activity, date. Does that make sense? So that's how your CV should be formatted. So the final tip is to include page numbers in your CV and include your name, like your last name, comma, CV. So for me, I would say Amuta CV. Like Amuta CV on the right and then the page number on the left. So in your footer, so like your footer page, like you know how your Word document has a footer page, so you just include that, your last name, comma, CV, and then the page number on the right side. Your last name, comma, CV on the left, your page number on the right, and that just populates throughout your CV. You want to make sure that you put all these things into consideration. You want to try to make sure that you have a good working knowledge of Word, Microsoft Word, and so that everything is edited nicely. Everything is edited. It's not jumping around, right? Maybe that's what you probably can get help with if you don't really know how to use Word. But I hope this video helps you figure out what you need to put in your application, how you need to organize it, and how you need to, like the basic things you need to edit. What you need to do is settle down, sit down, take your pen and paper. You can actually draft your CV by hand, right? Go back, everything I've mentioned, think about everything you've done and draft it and make sure that your grammar is right. Maybe that's what you need help with. Actually figuring out how to write things where it's crisp, clear, concise, and not wordy. So maybe you need help with reviewing your CV, maybe. But if you need just structural help and content-wise and things, you really don't need to pay anyone to review. All you need to do is sit down and do the work. I'm telling you, do the work. Sit down, get your pen and paper, and write out everything you've done. Follow everything I mentioned in this video. Write out everything you've done step by step. Type it out, edit it, and honestly, you're good. You're good. It's not rocket science, I promise. Because I get a lot of questions. I've reviewed, maybe 30 CVs, and it's the same thing. It's the same issues, right? You don't know where to put stuff. You don't know what sections to include. So many grammatical errors. Those are the things to work through. So yeah, all right. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you learned anything, and I will catch you back in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye. Man, I am growing so much white hair. It's crazy. Like, can you see that? I'm getting all white head, and I'm just 31. Crazy. Isn't it crazy? Pray for me.